Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 654, or episode number 69 of...
69 dudes. I was doing Bill and Ted.
Of the True North Eager Beaver Interview Project, or 364 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show, because we have a guest today and we're going to have a conversation. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, and of course, the twins. Yes. Today, recording
Tweedledee
day.
and Tweedledum, is that what you're calling them? Or?
For today, yes. And then I have to find a new name for new thing for tomorrow.
Is your light on?
Yeah, it is. But I can turn it up a bit.
The mic flag seems to be catching it all because it's really
Oops.
bright, but you're... Oh, there we go. That's
Nope, that's not good.
No.
At all.
That's strange. We might need to get you some more lighting, I think, eh?
There we go. How about that?
That's better. We
That's
can
a
live with
little
it.
weird. Anyway. Hold on. I just have to find the right one. There we go. Okay. Let's try that again. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 604 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show, or episode number 69.
654. 69. You're frazzled now,
Okay.
I know, right?
Start again.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Well,
There you go.
good morning and... Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 654 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show, otherwise known as episode number 69 of the True North Eager Beaver Interview Project.
69, dude.
Today, recording day, is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, for broadcast on Friday, May 23rd. So for those of you watching, we're doing a little time traveling. Thank God it's Friday. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me as always is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, and yes, the twins, they're still here.
Jimmy and the twins. Just so you know, this is not a coffee. It is 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon, so it's not a coffee.
It's not a coffee. This actually is water because I'm on crutches, so I can't afford not a coffee. I have to have all my faculties. Don't crutch and drive. Don't drink and crutch, I guess.
I was going to grab a coffee earlier, like about a half an hour ago, because I was like just groggy. It was been a groggy day. I got some production work done, but I've had some computer issues and this and that. So I was like, I'm going to lie down for a few minutes. I was out cold for 2 hours. I'm like, oh, I guess I clearly needed that.
I fell asleep sitting up
So,
earlier
so
in the
then
day.
so then I immediately was like, I should get a coffee. And I went to make coffee and the water was turned off in my building. So I'm like, shit. So I went over to the corner store and picked up some bread, and I was going to pick up some bottled water and come back and make some coffee. And I thought, no, I won't. That's stupid. I can just get a coffee here for $1. And I'm like, wait a minute, what time is it? Let's not get a coffee now. That'll be in my system for the next 7 hours. I just won't have a coffee. So instead, I'm having a cool, refreshing malted barley sandwich.
Ooh, yum yum. Is it chewy?
Don't judge me. It's 4:30.
Is it chewy? Is it toothy?
No, it's quite mild.
All right.
Low and mild.
Ah,
I cracked it open at 4:20.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm guessing mental health still doing well today, sir.
Yeah, actually, and I think that 2-hour nap, which was unexpected and unplanned, really did a world of good for me. It's funny how now, prior to this, when I was working full time, I'd sit there and I go like, oh, I'm gonna have to get a coffee, and I did because I can't just go lie down when you're at work, even though they did have like a napping room. Not like sleeping pods like they do at some of those big tech companies, but they did have a room where you could go lie down. But I'm like, I went into that room and it was seldom ever used. And I walked in there and I'm like, nope. Well, there was a toilet facilities there, which was never ever used. So it doesn't get flushed frequently. So the water's a little, anyway. I also, as a contractor, I don't know if I really had the rights to be able to use those facilities. So I would just get a coffee and keep working. And an afternoon coffee would get you through the day. It was funny. I had a conversation with one of the VPs one day, and his take on it was the same as mine. He goes, I love a cup of tea in the afternoon. It's got just enough caffeine to carry you through and it's mellow. He says, I need coffee in the morning. Tea in the morning just doesn't do it for me, but tea in the afternoon is great. I go, yeah, I agree with you. And then there's the days when you need a coffee in the afternoon. He's like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've all had those days. Well, you don't drink coffee, so you're lucky. But it's the times when you go to sleep early the night before, but you wake up frequently for some reason, and you can't get back to sleep, and you wake up wide awake, and by the time 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock rolls around, you're dead tired because you've not had enough sleep. You're functioning, but not well. So caffeine helps. I don't recommend it, though.
No. When it comes to coffee, again, same thing. That's still, after 52 years on the planet, still do not understand how something that smells so good can taste so bad.
It's like like many things in life. It's an acquired taste, and people are like, "Oh, you're just a snowflake who works for the federal government and lives in," and I'm like, none of those things are true. I've never worked for the federal government, and you can call me a snowflake if you want, but I drink my coffee black. My beer is preferred to Guinness, and I drink my whiskey neat, and my steak rare. Any questions?
All right. So
anyway, we have a guest.
We have a guest, Kits and Kubs. That's why it's an interview project show today. A returning guest.
Yes.
A bit of a favorite from our Kits and Kubs.
Indeed.
Because I'm going to start calling him our resident.
I'm comfortable with
economist.
That. Let's ask him if he's comfortable with that. I certainly am, because my goodness,
you know him. You love him. We know you do, because we read the comments. So please,
we do.
Put your hands up. Well, actually, your paws up, and give a big round of applause for Mr. Dave Gray. Welcome back to the Beaver Lodge, sir.
Kits and Kubs.
How's
How are
it
you
going?
doing?
It's so nice to see you.
Nice to see you guys. Good to catch up with my Eastern Canadian confreres.
Yes, and as always, Mr. Gray is here to correct our Laurentian elocution. And by the way, thank you so much for helping us with the election show too on that night. It was really great to have your insights, and I appreciate you popping in for a bit on that night.
Well, it's my pleasure once again. Of course, it's a huge disappointment for Western Canada that things didn't go exactly the way they wanted. So we could talk about that in the context of our upcoming separation referendum.
Yes, yes. Some people have decided to take the election result rather hard.
It seems
You know,
they all forget about this little map, right? Every single time.
there is a frustration being a Western Canadian and having the elections be over as soon as you vote. Right? Like it's funny that way, but my God, I don't understand people here repeating the same thing for 50 years at a time and wondering why it doesn't work. I mean, even when we had conservatives in power in Ottawa, all the things they complain about now were enacted. So
Mhm.
it was Harper that put in equalization. It was
Right,
Harper that put in carbon taxes. It was
right,
Mulroney who put in the GST.
right.
You could go back in time and basically every time there's been a conservative government, in accordance with Alberta's wishes, Alberta's gotten just royally screwed.
Hmm.
Right. And the problem is that they haven't figured out that if you're a single party voter, you have no leverage, even with your own party. They
Right.
just take you for granted. So that's the situation again. People feel like they're being taken for granted when really they're just being silly.
Hmm. I noticed that with Saskatchewan last time too, where it just not this recent election, but the previous one, where it all went blue, and they go, "We're not represented at the table." Well, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, honest to God, I don't know what to do with some of these people because there's no pleasing them, right?
Right.
Correct
And
me if I'm wrong, sir, but I think in many cases, so many people they vote conservative because that's what my father did and my grandfather, and oftentimes they just do it because it's what they've always, it's Lola, what they've always done. When they rarely, seldom, if ever, look at what the actual platform is, and I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong on occasion. Uh, they're constantly voting against their own best interests.
yeah, yeah, I know if you're under $25 million in net worth, you're not wanting to vote for the conservative platform, right? It doesn't help you. And people, even rich people, need to math better. So let's say you've done well, like my father-in-law, I don't know, probably retired with $20 million
Mm.
in assets, ran a couple of car dealerships, did very, very well for himself.
Worked very
He
hard his whole life for
is,
it too, right?
well, yeah, he did.
Mhm.
And, he worked his butt off and he was a fantastic car dealer and people loved him. But he is 0.001% as wealthy as Galen Weston, right? Millionaires in our society are paupers compared with the very most wealthy.
Right.
And I don't think people wrap their minds around that very easily.
And that's where you get the backs up so um,
Yeah.
I don't want to say violently, but sharply at at the any talk of like a nominal increase to capital gains inclusion. It's like, well,
Mhm.
but I'm not rich compared to Galen Weston, but
Right.
right compared to
Well,
the
and we
people
always
living in
try
an
to.
encampment, it's like you can afford to pay a little more. So but everybody's comparing each other, but everybody's comparing each other, not looking. It's really weird. It's like it's like there's a movement that wants you to look down when you're comparing each other to yourself.
Mhm.
Like at least you're not them.
Hmm.
So vote for us. And then there's the whole other movement that's sort of like, oh, well, I can't be rich or I can't be well off because, well, look, they got it better and they got it better and they got it better. And it doesn't matter how much you have and how much
Mhm.
better you have it than the people when the times you look down, you go, oh my God, at least I'm not that.
We always
And you
compare
don't,
ourselves to our peer
but never
groups.
those two thought processes meet.
No.
They're like both in a vacuum.
Hmm. Yeah, we're not very sophisticated apes, which
I
gets
wish
us
I
to
wish that
Alberta.
wasn't the case, but
I'm
it
just
is.
seeing me now back in the days, sitting there like this, martini in one hand, like this with my ape fur, and it's sort of like, well, you all not sophisticated, but
I
you
remember
should
when I
really
was a
try
young
it.
lad. When I was a young lad and I was living in Cold Lake, And my father was a military man, so we weren't even middle class, especially back then. This is the early to mid 70s. I mean, the military was not. They were paid well in Canada compared to their counterparts in, say, the UK or the United States, but compared to the rest of the country, they weren't.
Right.
And I've long advocated for we need to pay these men and women better because they put their lives on the line damn near every day. Anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But I remember on Sunday nights when, pay week, Sunday nights, we'd have the big roast beef dinner and my folks would open a bottle of baby duck.
Yeah.
Because, right, and they'd pour a glass for each other. And my dad would jokingly say, I wonder what the poor people are doing this evening. That was us.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like a tongue-in-cheek thing,
Yeah.
We didn't know we weren't rich until we left the farm.
Right.
I didn't know. I never knew I was poor until I hit grade 5 and had to go into a foster family. And they moved into a better neighborhood to send their own son to a better high school. And then I arrived. It's like, oh, why does everybody wear shirts with a little horsey on it at this place? And it's like, what's this Club Monaco thing that everybody has on? It's like, 'cause I've got this at the GT boutique.
We wore Fox.
And I look fine. Right?
That's what we could afford.
Can you imagine my culture shock moving from Stoughton, Saskatchewan, population 750, to Oakville, Ontario for grade 10? Yeah, it was there were more people in my high school than in my hometown.
Yeah.
So the concept of people going out of the country for March break was what? You go skiing? You go to Florida? I just happy that I get to watch the Flintstones.
You can do that?
4 or 5 days. It's like, whoa, live at large. It's like, yeah, totally not the same field of play.
Well, when we moved to Newfoundland in 1977, for the first time, I went to for want of a better term, a civilian school, because I'd always gone to school on base. So even the Snob Hill, which was where the officers lived, they earned a better living than my family did. But to us, they were rich. And then you move to a small town and you play hockey with one guy whose father runs the bank and the other guy who is the head of the Catholic school board. And then you find out the real disparities. Because growing up on a military base as a kid, it's pretty egalitarian for the most part. So it was a real eye-opener to me. It was a shock to the system,
Yep.
And Anyway, so we got way off topic there. Sometimes that happens.
Well, let's bring it back, because when I moved to Calgary from Oakville, when we moved in 1979, we moved just down the street from Nancy Southern. So I absolutely understand the issue of wealth disparity.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think she's worth about $7 billion now.
Good sir, we didn't ask you at the beginning of the show, but given everything that is going on right now in Alberta, and it's a lot, how's your mental health today, sir?
It's good, because I am working with a very good group of people to take concrete steps to improve our democracy here in Alberta, and to reaffirm our place inside of this wonderful nation of Canada.
Those are the words we want to hear. That's music to my ears.
A little bit of democracy, something that you do?
We need an injection of better democracy. So the thing that we're working on is something we started last year, called the Citizens Research Forum. And the purpose of this is to weed out all of the propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation from the issues that we're looking at, so that people get the best argument and evidence on both sides and don't get the BS. It's really a sorting mechanism to get rid of the BS in our society's information stream. But we're also doing another thing, which is to create the first Alberta whistleblower fund. So over the course of the healthcare scandal that we have that I'll fill your listeners in on here in a sec. There have been two sets of court cases. One where the Breakdown, a podcast that looks at Alberta politics, has been sued by
Our good friend,
businessman, Sam Raish, and the other where the former CEO of the Alberta Health Service, a lady named Athana Mensalopoulos, is being sued or is suing the government, and the government is countersuing using two of Canada's largest law firms to go after her. So in support of those brave people, we've done two GoFundMe campaigns. One is still going on for Athana, and at the moment I think the Breakdown's got enough for their fund. We're going to routine this and make it regular that whistleblowers from the Alberta government will have support services. We'll have a team of lawyers available for them to talk to, connections for them to give information to the press on a confidential basis, and ways to support either, lawyers for them and if there's any lawsuits, and to provide, income support if needed so that people feel free to come forward. There's just such, there's been a real movement to terrorize the Alberta Public Service by this government, and we are fighting back very hard because it's terrible what they're doing. They're trying to hide what has been a $500 million boondoggle, and in doing so, they are wrecking all of the processes that are in place to ensure that governments are honest.
Interesting. Now, when you say that Athana has two of the law firms basically trying to counter her and basically tie her up so much in legal paperwork and all that kind of stuff and costs that she can't bring her FCR claim all the way through, are they both fighting her on same things, or are they coming at her from two different angles?
So they have lawyers from Martin Fasquino, so from Fasquino, and from Bennett Jones.
Bennett Jones is the other,
and to be honest, I'm not in the courtroom, so I'm not sure what particular role each of those firms is playing.
Okay.
What I know is that's on top of the government lawyers that are already in place at the Department of Justice.
Okay. So what we have going on here, if I'm understanding correctly, is that we have a government that is alleged to have done something improper. There's a whistleblower, and essentially the government has decided to use the full resources of the state against a citizen.
You've got it.
That's not okay.
It is not okay. And so that's why we're fighting it. And I would encourage anyone who likes democracy in Alberta from anywhere in Canada, please look up Save Athana. So it's like Athena, but with an A. So save, ATHANA.com is her GoFundMe fundraiser. I think we're getting very close to the initial target of $100,000. And what's going to happen if any excess is raised or if it's returned, we're going to end up, I think, where excess monies will start the fund that I've just been talking about.
Okay. Good. It's good to know.
So the whole story, I don't know if people are familiar with it, but let me lay out
let's go into that.
Outlines. During the Kenney government, and during the pandemic, there were a number of contracts let out to a company called MH Care. This company had never been involved in any healthcare related work before, but they've ended up with over $500 million in sole source contracts for masks, so for PPE, sanitizer, and a bunch of other medical PPE that was used during COVID. They've sourced it from China and Turkey and really provided terrible product for extraordinary prices. And now they're involved in privatizing surgical care with, again, the issue being that they're getting contracts at much higher than contract prices for everyone else in these special deals. And it was the case that the officer, the Marshall Smith, who was the Premier's chief of staff in her office, went to Alberta Health Services and demanded, right, that these contracts be signed for these guys. Now, Athena, doing her due diligence as CEO, found these contracts and started asking questions about them. And the next thing she knows, she's fired. Right? She's fired illegally. The government actually had no authority to fire her. It was her board of directors that would have had that authority.
Right.
And so they got fired the next week. Right? It's just the reaction, I'm told, was of just shocked horror when it came to light that these investigations were going on. And so the conclusion, when people do strange things in hurried ways, is that they've got something serious to hide. And when we're talking about $500 million of money, some 50 million of it that's totally unaccounted for, perhaps more, on top of billions of dollars that have come from the feds that seems to be unaccounted for. It's starting to look like a very, very fishy affair.
It's interesting because you mentioned people who doing things really fast might have something to hide. I remembered a bunch of trees disappearing from someplace in Ontario relatively soon.
Yeah.
Not too long
it's
ago.
Just crazy.
Anyway, just
we need
parallels.
to be able to rein in governments. Our governments need governance. And
they do.
It's clear that political parties are not going to do that. They have no incentive. And so that's where having a new institution, the Citizens Research Forum, is going to come in to cut through the BS and cut through the propaganda that people are using to get elected.
Now, I'm going to go out there on a limb and suggest that there's going to be naysayers on both sides of the political spectrum who will say that this new forum is akin to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, which, well...
Yeah, no, it's nothing like that. Essentially what it is,
I know that.
Is a way for people to collaborate on research. And so the basic unit of this is the Steelman brief, which is effectively the kind of briefing note that you would give to a minister of the Crown. Here are the issues, here are the ramifications, here's the evidence. These are the two options, here's both sides of it. You don't give a conclusion, all you give is the evidence and arguments in support of the options. And you let people draw their own conclusions, but based on reliable and factual information rather than what their buddy said.
Well, and this is something I can get behind 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is long overdue. Long overdue.
Well, and here's where it gets fun, and where I want to involve kids as young as 14, because the output on the far end of this is looking forward 100 years. So doing a regular rotating planning conference on what's our economy going to look like? What's our environment going to look like? What's our population going to look like? All of the sort of demographic things that make weirdos like me happy out 100 years so we can get past the politics, right? When you're talking that far into the future, the beauty is that people don't take it personally.
Right. They see it's very pragmatic, right?
Yeah, I'm really hoping to get people interested in policy such that they're better briefed on it than the politicians.
That would be awesome, because right now we have so many citizens across this country who scream at the Prime Minister for things that are directly related to municipal and provincial politics. And they don't even know the separation. They don't know who runs or does what. And if we can get some more education across this country and just let more people know Okay, I know you're mad at him for that, but that's the wrong person to be mad at.
Well, and we need to reboot journalism, right? I mean,
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
the clearest change in my lifetime has been the corrosive effect of allowing an American hedge fund to own
Yes.
all of our newspapers.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous. You don't get any news anymore. And you
Right.
certainly don't get any that you can trust. And you get these just wackadoodle opinion pieces that would be far right in Missouri,
Mhm, mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Right.
strange.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
and I think, what is it? It's less than 1%. Less than 1% of, and I'm going to say Post Media because that's who is the American hedge fund owned. The hedge fund owns 62%, and the rest of the foreign ownership is under other individuals from other nations. Less than 1% is Canadian owned,
hmm
and that's not right.
That
So,
surprised me in the election that nobody ran on a platform of some kind, that there was a policy like whatnot on information, disinformation, and when we talked about foreign interference and whatnot, all disinformation coming through media and then making a push. Like, why in Canada would we not for news to be by Canadians for Canadians, published in media that was owned and operated by Canadians? Because whose other interests are we? If we don't tell, it's almost like CBC again. If we don't tell our own stories, then who will?
mhm. Well, and it's even worse than that, because here's what's happening in Alberta. We're getting
Mm.
in and on social media with what can only be American funded advertising,
Mhm.
right? We're supposed to have laws that people need to register as third-party advertisers, and they need to submit all the receipts and keep track of their donors. Well, what happened is that the Take Back Alberta group, which was the main push behind Danielle Smith's leadership and later election, just ignored them all. I mean, they've ended up with 120 grand in fines, but I don't think they care because they have millions of dollars available from, right-wing fever dream billionaires who want the world to look like it, the 1950s.
Yeah, that's not a
Right.
fine. That's how much will it cost me to do this?
Yeah. Like, it's just, it's insane, and it's going to get worse. And so we are at the sharp end of American attempts to destroy our country. And fuck those guys.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. No,
So
go ahead
let's
and
talk
drop all the
about,
F-bombs you want, because I agree with you.
so let's talk about I mean, the real reason that Danielle Smith is now on the record for being such in proximity to these separatists is because of Take Back Alberta having essentially major control over her political party, and them being just a bunch of right-wing nut jobs, right? Like,
Isn't there a
we
bit
are
of a muting
talking
happening there, though,
full-on
with
Christian white
Parker?
nationalists, right? They don't want people of color. They don't want immigrants. They don't want Indigenous people. They probably wouldn't even like the French. Like,
Even though they want to be them.
Yeah.
people here that are Klansmen, and they are a significant part of the force that's trying to push separation in Alberta, and they're going to get lots of help. I mean, they're going to get lots of help from Republicans. They're going to get lots of help from crazy conservatives and the IDU guys. It's going to be something, and we have the problem that the media channels in Alberta are just blocked up by the right wing. It's going to be a really interesting time because we're going to get flooded with propaganda.
But not only that, but they're being funded, as we've seen. There's a certain amount of money that has gone to the counter signal. There's a certain amount of money that have gone to the Western Standard. And I know the latter of which has vowed up and down and all around that they just never accept any government money whatsoever. I guess we're looking at over 400,000.
Because Dirk Hildebrand is a loudmouth liar.
Yes. Yeah, it's as simple as that.
We know that.
Yeah. I just find it ironic that we have at one side, you got Pierre Poilievre going like, defund the CBC, and we shouldn't be giving corporate subs, we shouldn't be giving subsidies to media and whatnot like this. And at the other end, you've got
Funding
Danielle
them.
Smith. It's like, hey, counter single, do you need $12,000 a month? Sure. Hey,
Every
what?
accusation is a confession with these guys.
Yes, it really, really, really is. It really is.
Yeah. So, have you guys ever read? It's basically I think it's called the Finkelstein method, but it was based on what the Nazis did.
Yeah.
So you pick one enemy at a time, right? Never say anything good about that enemy. Never humanize them. Anything that goes wrong is the exclusive fault of your enemy, and accuse your enemy always of that which you are guilty. Does that
If
sound
memory
familiar?
serves, yes,
That's a
that's
really
Goebbels.
old formula, and it was written first in Italian by Machiavelli.
Correct. And then Goebbels adopted it. And the Finkelstein method, if memory serves, Finkelstein said, I wanted to change the world, and I realized I did, but I made it worse. And he said that towards the end of his life.
Yeah.
When he realized, oh, shit.
I am looking forward to connecting across Canada with everyday Canadians. And that's going to be a subsequent conversation. We'll come back for that. But as part of what I plan to do here in Alberta is just to make us more Canadian, right? Connect us with Letterkenny and vous autres.
Yeah.
Because we get cut off out here, right? Like it's too easy for people not to have the broader conversation.
Yeah. Well, we were talking on the show, right? We were the other day when we were mentioning like Western alien. Like there's a lot of people out east. It's like, oh, come on, Western aliens. Like, stop it with that already, right? It's freaking Canada. Yes. But there are some legitimate issues. I mean, I pointed out that right now, we're all losing our minds because of what's going on in the auto industry. But China slapped 100% tariffs on canola, and where's the program?
Because we put tariffs on their EVs, right? Their electronic vehicles, their electric vehicles, and they really slapped us down with canola. And the problem with that is small farmers, small communities are really, really suffering right now. Oh, I guess we lost David.
Sorry, you just lost my camera.
Okay. Good. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, like small farms, small family farms, community farms, they are suffering horribly right now as a direct result of this, and it's not being addressed. And we know this because we've had friends from Alberta and from Saskatchewan and Manitoba tell us this directly. They were small family farms are saying, we're getting hosed right now.
Even members of our
nobody's
audience,
doing anything about it. Yes. Yeah.
They can't get Cassie right now.
Well, and the funny thing is that if you listen to Danielle Smith, you wouldn't think we had an ag sector, right?
Right?
Oil and gas.
Just oil, just gas, just oil. That's it. Nothing else. I'm like, canola, corn, Alberta beef. Hello.
Renewables gone. Right? She's just now she's I've come to the conclusion that she's literally just an oil lobbyist masquerading as a premier.
Yeah.
Well, and doesn't she want to do what Jason Kenney wanted to do? Let's just tear that mountain down and get the coal out of it. Excuse me? People who live in the Rockies,
and people have said no to that many times now.
The Rockies lose their ever-loving minds, and justifiably so. Yeah. What is it, the scar just outside of Canmore?
Yeah.
That people talk about? It's like, if you buy a house that looks at the scar, the price of your house is like a third of what it is if it looks at Three Sisters.
And we get more money as a province out of one good gas field than we get out of the entire coal sector.
So why?
There are way too many instances where the public policy doesn't make any damn sense unless you consider that there's some private benefit going to someone.
Yeah. Somebody somewhere is getting rich.
Yeah.
Wow. So keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So here we are getting ready for a referendum. I am glad to say that we are going to have a referendum on Canadian unity, it looks like. Yes. So Thomas Lukaszuk, former deputy minister of the province, had the good sense, as soon as they changed the legislation, to take his $500 and his application form down to the Elections Alberta office the very next day and registered a question for a referendum through the process that the government laid out that would say we are staying in Canada and there will be no separation. And so I'm glad to see him go ahead and do that. The other change that they made, and the reason that I wanted to come on and talk to you Laurentians, was there used to be a restriction that only Alberta companies could participate in this thing. And for some reason, which I can only presume has to do with American money, they've taken that restriction off. So people can donate to the campaign for one side or the other. I'm going to suggest that you donate to the Remain Canadian campaign, but they're going to need a lot of money to counter the amount of money that's coming in to put up propagandist advertising in my lovely province. And so I am going to reach out to all of you kits and Kubs when the opportunity comes, if you wouldn't mind donating to Thomas's campaign, help us get the word out that we are proud Canadians and wish to stay that way. I would appreciate that from the bottom of my little heart. If you can remember
Thomas
back
is a good
to,
man.
yeah, if you can remember
He's a good
back
man.
to when Quebec, was having their debacle, and the way that people in Canada came together and went to Quebec to support, staying in Canada. I'm hoping people do the same thing here.
I'm happy to come out to Calgary and parade and support a unity structure because of the fact that, both of my sisters were born in Alberta.
Well,
I spent the first 7 years of my life in Alberta. I was born in Toronto, but don't hold that against me. I had no control over that. But but look, Alberta is part of Canada, an important part of Canada, and there are folks who think we can separate and we'll keep our passport and our CPP and the Canadian money and the military. And you live in a fantasy world, because I can guarantee you there's not a single person outside of that province who would allow that to happen for one split second. It just wouldn't. I'm sorry, it's never going to happen. And we won't even get into the all of the rules that are set in place about the idea of separation and how it has to be an overwhelming majority that votes yes, and then all the provinces have to agree, and the federal government has to agree, and the Indigenous bands have to agree, and the Crown has to agree. It's not going to happen. You can have the referendum and vote to leave, but the departing process is. That being said, though, we do need to get together and support Alberta to stay as part of the country.
Well, and I don't want to lose sight of this. My concern really isn't as much with the legalistic, steps of people leaving or the province being, divided from the nation. I am more concerned with the amount of agitprop and bad feelings and increased amounts of anger and alienation that a few $1 million worth of advertising is going to buy. Because I'm not concerned about this being a legal process. I'm worried about this becoming a kinetic process.
Yes.
Very valid point, sir. And that's dead bang on the money right there. If we don't nip this in the bud, it will create decades of anger, resentment, hatred. The alienation will get worse because you'll have people who will put, like you just said, advertising dollars into making people feel bad about this. Forget about the whole fact that there's legal precedent set if you want to separate, but to do it, it's like the checks and balances that are in place. It's never really going to happen. Let's be honest. But what you're saying is changing the spirit and the mindset of people to make them angry and hateful and resentful, and a few $1 million worth of ads will do that, and that's dangerous. That's more dangerous.
And we've seen it, because I'm imagining a situation where we have that referendum, we have the vote. Let's say there's a vote to leave, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, you can't. what happens then? How do they react then? And we've already seen it, right? Stephen Harper promised them something that he could not deliver right from the get-go, which was an elected Senate. He raised money off that for about a decade.
Mhm.
Now people are mad they didn't get it. He
Yeah.
promised them a pipeline, didn't build. No federal conservative party like this, and no provincial conservative party in Alberta has built an inch of pipeline to Tidewater in 50 freaking years.
Mhm.
But they
But
raised
they
a
hate
hell of a lot of
trade-off.
money on that.
Well,
Yes.
and to give you
And
a
then, but all of this was used as the reason that we're at the verge of being kinetic is this same strategy, promising something that cannot be delivered because
Mhm.
it's either unconstitutional or illegal or impractical, it just can't happen, and that raising money for about a decade, not getting it, and then blaming the activist judges, blaming the liberals, blaming but getting you mad and then turn you in the direction of who you want to be mad at, and then releasing that.
Mhm. That's
And that
exactly
is
my
the bigger
concern.
concern. Yeah.
A few
Yeah,
million
and that
dollars
is a big concern.
of advertising is going to lead to somebody putting together a couple of tons of ammonium nitrate fertilizer.
And we have Oklahoma City all over again.
Right.
And that is not an outrageous statement, sir, at all. It's
No.
not. That could happen. That could very well happen.
It's the next step up from what happened in Ottawa.
Yes.
Well, you got to keep in mind that half of Albertans are pissed off as mad hens over the equalization program that Harper put in when everybody across Canada pays the same level of income tax, right?
This is what
They've been allowed to be twisted into little knots by something that's, was put in by Tories, was put in by their hero Harper, and has always been fair, right, on an individual level. But it's turned into this, T-shirt of we're ripped off to the tunes of trillions of dollars. Well, it's all horseshit, but it's effective.
And every time we
horseshit.
try and point it out to folks, like
Yeah.
if you combine the province of Ontario's GDP and the province of Quebec's GDP, that's like 62% of Canada's GDP
Yeah.
in two provinces.
If you talk to the average non-union energy professional, you would get the idea that 90% of Canada's GDP was oil.
Oh, yeah.
It's under 5% of Canada's GDP is oil.
Yeah.
It's an important export, but it is not the main driver of our economy.
Never
And
has
what
been.
was we had Stockholm or Dutch disease. I don't know if you recall that when we were really selling oil and our currency appreciated and nobody could sell anything else. Yeah, that's Dutch disease.
Yes. And that goes back to what, the tulip bulb stock trading thing in the 1600s or whatever it was. Is that
No,
what
it goes back to the 1970s when they discovered gas off of the coast of Poland. Yeah,
Okay,
it became a major gas
mixing.
exporter. It drove the value of the kroner through the roof, and they couldn't sell any Gouda because suddenly the Gouda was twice as expensive in French francs as it was before.
And it's not like there aren't hundreds of other cheeses.
Yeah, throughout Europe.
But that's what the law of unintended consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, somebody's got to see this and be doing it anyway, right? Like there are people that are doing malicious things in our world just to watch it burn.
Well, that was the great line that Michael, oh, what's his name? I see his face. I can't. Thank you, Michael. You know what it's from? Batman, The Dark Knight. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
A great line and a valid one, because those people do exist. There's people like, they don't care. They just want to watch the world burn.
Well, and we're in a very interesting situation here where half of our governing party, or more than half, would vote to separate. Right?
Well, see, here's the thing that I find interesting, because you mentioned that, and I saw that article. It was like 64% of Albertans want to remain in Canada, but 65% of UCP voters want to leave. That puts Danny Destructo in quite a little pickle.
Yeah, it does. And
no wonder she named a cabinet where 27 of the 47 people would all have goodies. I mean, she must know Because we said it on the show the other day. Like, this woman's in media. She
Mhm.
must know her time is up. She must know she's over at this moment, because there's just so many scandals. And she's doing everything to try and hold on like this. But she must know this. There's only one reason that you're going to like turn the wheel that hard towards that particular base, is because you're going all in on that to save your own damn hide.
Yeah. Well,
So she
and
will let it all burn down just to save herself.
oh yeah, no, she would toss the match,
Oh,
and that's what
I
she's
agree.
doing. And the funny thing is I can't believe that party hasn't self-destructed yet. It says something to the absolutely craven, political instincts of those people. There's only two of them, I think, that have had the guts to leave her caucus. But the core of the scandal is that her chief of staff had two of his underlings living
Yep.
with him in this house,
Mhm.
being donated essentially at way below market value, by the sister of the person that is at the center of this controversy, this $500 million, boondoggle.
Mm.
It's just, for these people on the one hand to be, you can't have pride flags, or, take out your pride sidewalks, and, trans people have no rights. And, at the same time, for them to put up with what appears to be a really torrid sex scandal, it's just, the
Yeah.
hypocrisy amazes me, right?
Oh
Like,
my God. I can't believe you said that, because on the show, it's like
right?
on the show,
It's
I was joking when I said this sounds like the plot line of a movie that people from my community used to go to the
Yeah.
video store and go behind the curtain to go and watch.
Right. It's just sad and pathetic. But here we are, for another 3 years if we don't do anything about it. Now, the other thing that is happening, and although it's a very difficult thing to do because they haven't changed that legislation, but the organization of recall campaigns has been started. So it will be interesting to see where that goes, in terms of getting these guys out earlier. I mean, my dream would be that 2 or 3 more people just say enough is enough,
Right.
across the floor, bring down confidence, and we can sort it out either with an election or with a coalition government.
Because what I'm noticing with her is the exact same thing that happened to Blaine Higgs.
Mm.
Yeah,
Some people started like the clock has started. Trot out the cabbage, see if she lasts longer. I don't know, but like, this only ends one way. When you start bleeding cabinet ministers and then started handing out titles to a whole bunch of people, start the clock.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I wish this could all stop before all of this nonsense gets started, but it's too late for that.
Yeah.
We're in this situation where our health system is in desperate straits.
Yeah.
They've now appointed 4
I
ministers
know.
to what it appears is privatize every last damn facility in the province. And it's really the Harper's strategy.
Mhm.
Sell off all the assets of the public, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this has been something that the Conservatives have been doing for a very long time. We can go back to Diefenbaker,
Yeah.
and he was a progressive conservative of a different measure than Joe Clark and Brian Mulroney.
Yeah.
But Joe Clark and Brian Mulroney would have nothing to do with a Pierre Poilievre-led government. I mean, because he's not progressive. He's not a conservative. He's a Reform Party stalwart with a conservative name. That's it.
Yeah.
And again, I recognize the irony of the Conservatives telling us during the campaign, oh, well, if you vote for the Liberals, it's like, you will own nothing and you will love it. And it's the Conservatives that are selling everything we own, so that we end up owning nothing.
Yeah.
When we had a national airline, Air Canada, Brian Mulroney sold that off. How has that gone for us over the last 40 years since that took place? I mean, because the last time I checked, prices have gone up and service has gone down. Flights get canceled at the last second, and you don't get any compensation, even though there has been legislation tabled to start to compensate airline passengers for that, because in the US they have it. If they cancel your flight at the last second, they have to pay you $750.
And in the EU, it's even higher.
And you can demand cash, and they have to get it to you. We don't have anything like that in Canada.
Well, I think we out west really missed the wheat board. Right?
Yes.
No
Times
kidding.
like these.
Sold that off to Saudis, right?
It would be nice if we had a more functional rail system. I mean, there's an awful
How is
lot.
it not a high-speed link between Edmonton and Calgary? Like, this is astonishing to me.
There's oil money. Build the land link.
And how
if you have oil money and a sovereign wealth fund, why would you not use it to build? That's the whole reason why you put that stuff in place for these types of big capital projects when they're needed.
How many accidents happen on that highway on a daily basis where people are killed and maimed, right? The speed that people drive on that highway, and you've got the laybys where you pull off to the side and take a rest, but it's a mostly flat highway between Edmonton and Calgary. There's a couple of hills and little valleys, but I mean it's pretty flat. So building a rail line from one point to the other, it's got to be the simplest rail line in the country to build. I mean, really. Sure,
They are.
You're going to
be fair,
couple
they
of
are
bridges.
looking at it. I mean,
Thank
they
goodness.
have done it. They've convened some people to look at running rail between Calgary and Edmonton, but also between Calgary and Banff. Right?
Oh, fantastic!
That connect to tourism. The ideal one would be from Edmonton to Jasper, because it's a much longer trip.
Yes,
it's the same distance from Edmonton to Banff as it is from Edmonton to Jasper.
Because I know I can take the train from Ottawa and get to Jasper on via rail. A couple of transfers here and there, but I can do it. But to get from Jasper to Edmonton, there's no rail. There's no rail link.
It's a funny setup. It really is. But in terms of, why don't we have the money from the, how much have we gone through now?
Is it the Heritage
Several
Fund?
$1 trillion of revenue from natural resource revenue. And there's none left because they give it away, right? We have ridiculously low royalty rates.
Unbelievably low.
Essentially we are a banana republic for American oil companies, right? And that's my concern, is they love destabilizing governments in banana republics. And that's, that's my concern right now, is that we will have a flood of attempts from the American administration to destabilize our nation.
Well, and how many of the Alberta separatists seem to think that they'll be able to use oil as a bargaining chip? And I'm like, if you separate from Canada, you do realize the more powerful nations south of the 49th parallel will just take whatever the hell they want, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, I think they should ask the people of American Samoa, how they like being a vassal state.
Yeah. Or Puerto Rico.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to this. If you're not a rich white Republican, you don't belong in America's new apartheid.
No, you don't.
And those are the people that want to separate from Canada and join the U.S., are people that would be perfectly happy in South Africa, in the 70s. And
well, I spent time in South Africa.
For it. Right.
A little, I've been there. I've seen it. I've experienced it firsthand, and as has Mr. Beaver. He spent time in were you in Joburg or Cape Town? I can't remember. Durban, which I've yet to go to Durban, and I'm told it is just a beautiful place to go.
It is.
Yeah,
it really is. It's the vacation destination over there.
It really is. Yeah. So, I don't want to get too far off topic here, but
but
you brought up South Africa, so the diamond, by the way, that represents Botswana. That's Botswana, which is north of South Africa. Huh. My parents lived there for a few years, and I went to visit, and it changed my life.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we get you out here to Alberta, and
Yes.
Well,
lives.
Here's the thing. I was there in December at my buddy's place. I went skiing at Lake Louise. I spent a couple of weeks there last July, and the previous December I was there. I'm trying to get back out, but we have to go to Yellowknife in July, and I might be starting a new job shortly around that time. So I'm trying to calculate money wise, how can I get to Calgary for a couple of days? Because I've been talking to my buddy, and it's like I got to get out there to see you. And I wanted to meet up with Nate, our buddy Nate.
Yeah.
From the breakdown. And I said, next time I'm in Calgary, he goes, yeah, let's get together. We'll have a beer, we'll go out and have a pint and talk shop. So next time I'm out in Calgary, I'll reach it, because you're not in Calgary, are you?
I'm in St. Albert, so just north of Edmonton.
Right. So that's a little further, but hey, I can take a roadie.
Well, look, it's only 14 hours from Yellowknife.
Right?
Yes. Short drive.
Maybe if we're going, maybe we can book with a transfer through there.
And here's the funny thing: in Canada, you go, how far away is it? About 14 hours. Oh yeah, we could do that in a day. I've driven to New Brunswick in a day.
Well,
that's a 12-hour day.
It does depend how fast your car is.
Yes.
So I lived for 7 years in Hay River, working for the power company, and I had a Ford Taurus SHO.
Well, that's a fast car.
It was good for 162 kilometers an hour. It could go faster than that, but if you do it 163, the second set of injectors would kick in and your fuel mileage would go straight down. So couldn't quite make it. But when my sister came up for a visit, she couldn't believe how many people with bears on the bumper were going by at 100 miles an hour plus.
Okay.
But it's a very, very lonely road.
Well, if you remember a couple of years ago when Christopher Freeland got a speeding ticket driving between Calgary and Edmonton, if memory serves.
Grand Prairie and Edmonton.
Grand Prairie, thank you. And of course, Kian Beck's Nazi Caillou goes, she's driving at near criminal speeds. You mean she was keeping up with the traffic on that road? Because everybody drives at that. If you're doing less than 120, you're going to get run off the road.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It really, like when I drove back from Calgary to Edmonton, I'm like, Ottawa guy, I'll do 110 because the speed limit here is 110.
Yeah.
Doing 110 and what is this, the Indy 500? So I kept up with traffic. I don't want to get a speeding ticket because I was in my buddy's vehicle. But it's like, if you don't keep up with the traffic, you're going to be the cause of an accident.
Right.
Look, I learned to drive in Toronto when I was in Oakville. And so I appreciate the forthrightness with which Ontarians conduct themselves on the highway.
Well, forthrightness, I love it.
I got my license in New Brunswick and then immediately moved to Chicoutimi. So I drove in Quebec for the first few years. So I learned how to drive with the traffic. And everybody used to say, and my dad used to say, the worst drivers in Canada are in Montreal.
Lola does not agree.
And then after my dad retired from the military and he got, he did his contracts and this and that, and he was completely retired and he just started driving limo for fun. And he would drive around Ottawa. And he came one day, we're sitting down having a beer and he goes, I always thought the worst drivers in Canada were in Montreal. And he goes, no, they're in Ottawa. He goes, in Montreal, they're aggressive and they drive fast, but they don't do stupid things like merge onto the highway at 60 kilometers an hour. They don't drift through lanes and I'm like, you're absolutely. And he goes, I didn't know it until I realized driving around Ottawa on a constant basis is like the worst drivers in this country are in this city. I'm not joking when I say it. Yes, they're fast and aggressive in Montreal, but they don't do stupid things.
And that feeds into the why I lived all my life in Ottawa. So when I took my first driving course and then they got to the class where they could teach you all the things that everybody else can do on the road to cause you to have an accident, that's when I pulled the ripcord. Sorry, I'm out because I live in Ottawa. I know what people. No, hell no. I've seen it.
Gents, sir, are you going to be able to end the show? Because she has to. She's like really. My apologies. I wanted to stick around and have more conversation because I'm really enjoying this. And Mr. Gray, I always appreciate every time you come to visit with us and how you can enlighten both myself and our audience and bring such great erudite conversation to these Laurentian elites.
Well, I
not
did
elites.
feel that it behooved me to try and elevate the conversation to the typical, as you said, erudite and flowing levels of logic that can only come from the beaver and the bear.
Oh,
Thank you, sir. That's a very high compliment indeed. I hate to go, but she really needs to go out. So thank you for coming by, Douglas, Mr. Beaver. Carry on, sir. You can end the show from your end, and I will see everybody very soon. Thanks for joining, and to the Kits and Cubs who are watching. As you know, this is a pre-record, and I keep forgetting to put up the whole. I have to put this up. The previously
Paul, if I don't
recorded.
see you in the past, you'll see you in the future.
Indeed, sir. Take care.
all right, it's just us. So we're talking about all the stuff with Danielle and separation, right? And you're worried about being kinetic and all these things, right? We're talking about those two staffers that are living or have been living with the chief of staff in a house that is owned by the sister of the person who owns the company, I guess, that received most
the
of
cousin
these
of the
contracts.
justice minister.
And then the justice minister's wife's cousin.
Yeah.
Like, so you have all these, I mean, it stinks to high heaven. You have all these relationships that are going on. You have Danielle essentially panicking
Mm-hmm.
and saying, okay, you know what, red meat people like this, I'm going to, all this stuff is breathing down my neck. It's going to happen at some point. I really thought during the federal election that she was trying to sabotage Pierre so that she could move to the federal level and say, well, ministerial accountability, sorry, I'm not there anymore. So ask someone else. And she can do, before they actually discover everything, that she would be somewhere else. With her specifically, right? My question, because I'm seeing all these big things, but then I'm watching all the small things. Like when you were here the first time, we were talking about the fact that the electricity rates jumped 128% year over year from July to July. She's coming back again with that coal thing, even though Albertans have rejected so many times. And the one that really just was like the straw for me, it's like, come on, was the AISH thing, where she's going to claw back the disability money, the disability benefit that the Canadian government is giving. She's just going to claw it back.
Oh, and even worse than that.
Oh, really?
So AISH recipients need to go to their doctor and spend money. I think it's like $400 to claim that federal benefit before they get it clawed back. So if they don't claim the federal benefit, they are off AISH. How is that for charitable? Right? Like, it's just gross, the extent to which Albertans are experimental toys in her libertarian, toy box.
So I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, like, how much does she get to take away from Albertans before they stand up? How much damage does she get to do before the UCP caucus does to her what they did to Jason? I mean, how much of a liability she had? Because I don't understand how she's still there.
At this point, all I can think of is that their brain trust has decided that this is their project 2025, and they are going to permanently break as much shit as they can, knowing that they will never get elected again. Like, it really is getting to that sort of Orwellian. Yeah, it's just the sort of things that we read about in 1984 and The Animal Farm. I didn't expect those would be recipe books, right? But here we are. And unfortunately, all those Machiavellian ministrations work, right? Propaganda works. If you repeat lies enough time, people believe them. Equalization is a great example of that. it's disturbing to watch people get turned on particular issues, right, that make no sense, like trans rights. Nobody heard of trans rights being an issue here. I mean, I think there's in total 8 transsexual Alberta athletes. 8. Right? And yet they put in this legislation that's some of the harshest in the world, restricting sex change operations and surgeries for people that, want it and need it. I listened to Kathleen Madigan as a comedian, and she had a bit about Jenner, right? Caitlyn Jenner, that can you imagine being 60 years old and deciding that you needed to go through all of these surgeries? I mean, the desire has to be unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
people
have to respect that. But because these are where these Republicans show up again, after the Republicans lost the gay marriage case at the Supreme Court in 2017, they actively went out looking for new wedge issues. And transsexuals came up with their highest ick factor.
Right.
I presume because of the crying game. Right. And it's just such a callous Nazi thing to do, right? To pick a subgroup and declare them the enemy. And use them to coalesce your forces of bigotry is just the most callous thing you can do as a politician. And that's where we're at.
And especially when you take an oath to govern for all people.
Yeah, that was
you
never
take an
going
oath
to
to
happen.
uphold the charter, and you do it. But
I mean,
right,
it's being run for the benefit of Murray Edwards, right? We belong to Murray Edwards.
You might want to tell
Murray
our audience
Edwards
a
is
little
the
bit more.
chairperson of Synovus, billionaire.
Gotcha.
He's the guy who owns the Calgary Flames.
Boy.
Yeah.
So jeez. It's like,
so what are we going to do about it? Well, one thing is we're going to beat them in court. So if, again, if your listeners don't mind going to saveathena.com and kicking in a few bucks, I've kicked in a few hundred, and several thousand people have kicked in about the same. So that one, and then when the referendum does start, I mean, you're going to be able to help out by either buying advertising or coming here. Love to see a whole bunch of Canadians coming here when we go for our, should we separate or not party.
Okay. So on one hand, we have a GoFundMe for Nate Pike, who's doing his own thing, trying to take on the part of it that we've talked about before, about the group that are trying to silence people talking about it in any way, and particularly those who are being particularly effective at it. In one way, it's a kind of a backhanded compliment. It's like, you're being too effective and you're too good at your job, so we need to silence you and single you out. Then we have Athana Metsalopoulos and the GoFundMe there, and she's got her case, and hopefully enough people will support it so that this can come to light. So those two things, and those are working their way through. She is bleeding a couple of people from her party, so that part is started. She feels desperate enough that she has to hand out goodies to a lot of people, so she must not be feeling as secure as she's letting on. Like this, and she's got the one thing you got to give to her is that she's got that unflappable face, except for when she was in the legislature the other day and claiming how she wanted the lie, the slander and the innuendo to stop, because apparently now suddenly she has a problem with slander and innuendo. Go figure. But she seemed rattled there in that one. So she's a bit rattled. We know that there is a bit of a falling out with some of the founding elements of Take Back Alberta. That could always come back to bite. So I could see her being a little paranoid at the moment and thus making some rash decisions. Have you seen the movie The Substance?
I have not, no.
Okay, because there's a point in the movie where things start going wrong, and then where it's going wrong, the person says, well, if I just try harder at the thing that's going wrong, maybe that will fix it, right? And now, and you can see that the things are done out of panic. Well, maybe that'll fix it. Let's try that. And it's like, oh crap, maybe try that. And it just gets worse and worse. There's going to come a tipping point where Danielle Smith can't talk fast enough to get ahead of what's coming. I mean, those seeds are sown, right? Those things are going to grow. Things are going to happen. So you got all of that happening. Nobody knows yet what it's going to take to get the caucus to throw her overboard, which should have been done a while ago if that caucus had any sense of self-preservation, but it doesn't seem to. So that's all going on. Meanwhile, there are citizens organizing, right? So you have these GoFundMes to get the citizen action. And then, like you said, you have a citizens research forum that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So in order to be able to get people information, if people wanted to participate in that, they're sitting there like we see that. It's like, oh my God, we're down like this. How can we help? How can people help?
With regards to the Citizens Research Forum, we are in the process of setting it up. And the mistake I made the last time was trying to organize too many people at the same time.
Gotcha.
So we had about 5,000 people sign up, and the organization of it got to be such a burden that we didn't move forward on creating the society. So this time, we're going to do it a little smarter and have an initial group of 50 to 100 people that will be active in helping us develop the procedures that we're going to use for this analysis. It's critical to me that we have a good research-based procedure that we can share, but until we try it, I don't know if it's going to work. And so my plan is to get an initial group of people together and turn the experimentation that we're going to do on our first issues, one of which will be the Grassy Mountain coal mine. Take the experience, put it on film, share it with people so they can see what it is we're doing, turn it into a bit of a reality TV show to get people's interest. And then if we've done it right, we have a pattern that we can take and just apply to every different area of government. My goal is ultimately to have a research panel effectively for every ministry of government and every subsection of that. So, have people that are expert in mining, have people that are expert in agriculture, have people that are expert in forestry, coming together to, one, make sure that the information everybody gets on issues is accurate, but number two, to bring an expanded idea space into our politics. The biggest problem I have with politics is that the people that are coming up with the ideas are just political operatives. They're not experts. They don't know what the hell they're doing, but they do it for, political reasons, and we end up getting hurt by it. So my hope is that we actually get to the point where things can be made to run better because we get people contributing better ideas to how we do things. I have a dream.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a great concept.
Well, it's the way that you get advancement, right? You don't get new ideas from people who are stuck into it with one point of view. You get new ideas from people coming new to something, or from people taking an idea from somewhere else and applying it. And that to me is really fascinating.
But that's good because you can, if I'm understanding this, it creates a mechanism that for people who might have some great ideas for how it is that society can work better or democracy can operate better, more smoothly, but that don't necessarily have the knowledge of the system or the players to advocate to move through. Like this connects a good idea with those who know how to get it implemented.
Exactly.
That's freaking brilliant.
I have my moments.
Sir, really good initiative.
If we get this going as well as I hope then it will be ready to spread across the country and around the world.
Again, that was literally what I was thinking. That's an idea that's easily upscalable as well.
Mhm.
Damn. I was going to say you're smarter than you look, but that's not true.
Someone asked the other day if I had a hat that says Economist, and I have a forehead that says Economist.
Because you worry.
It just keeps
Economists
going
worry.
and going.
It just keeps
and going.
going. I was just going to say, just more like when you wrinkle. Because I would assume that the job of economist is to worry. It's
I
worry.
have 12 folds in my forehead, so yes. Not all of them are genetic, coming from my children.
All right. So we have the Citizens Research Forum. Now, there's another initiative that you have. I believe it's a website.
We will be coming out with a new channel that will be totally Canada, just Canada, 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 in both official languages plus as many native languages as we can get.
C'est fantastic, Jimmy Butch.
Get help with. We do have a great Cree language radio station, and I'm planning to get to call them up and see if they can contribute. But really, the idea is for us as Canadians from coast to coast to coast to talk and help each other. I always remember a story told to me by my dear friend Danny Bodferson up from the Northwest Territories, that the difference, or one of the big differences that he saw between the US and Canada was the extent to which Americans celebrate their business successes. Right? Celebrate each other's business successes, whereas Canadians tend to be more resentful of people that are successful. And I think that's changed over time, and I still think it's a terrible idea. I mean, if what we want is a better country, we can be better citizens of that country to start with, and then we can be more supportive of each other's successes. And so that's what I want to do. We have this thing right now where we need to, find new markets for Canadian goods that aren't going to the US anymore. Well, I would like to find out about those, regional companies that should be going national and publicize. Right. So, yeah, lots of good stuff coming on that, and I think we can definitely involve you guys in these Canadian whoop-ups, right?
We are down.
It's going to be fun. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing over the course of my life is promoting people, particularly artists, right? Because artists are terribly shy people quite often, and they don't have anybody that will say, hey, listen to this guy. So it's one of the things that I've been doing. I volunteer with our CJSR College Radio, and we produce a show called Sidetracks that records our local artists in our local venues and then mixes them, courtesy of my award-winning friend, Miles Wilkinson. Nice. And then we've been broadcasting them. And just the level of talent that people are unaware of. Just to give you one example, if you like dancing, go look up Mellow the Lion.
Okay.
The band out of Edmonton, young guys, just hip hop dance stuff. People are going to dig it. So Mellow the Lion.
M-E-L-O?
On your playlist.
M-E-L-O? Mellow?
Mellow, as in, mellow yellow. So Mellow the Lion. And they're just awesome. Right. And so many people out here are just fantastically talented. I miss the days when, MTV had Saturday night dance parties. And I think we can bring a lot of that stuff back. I'm looking forward to the notion that we can have a hell of a good time by ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, God. Yeah. Now, again, if you're talking about Saturday night dance parties, I'm down. I'm ready to boogie down for democracy.
Right.
I'll bust a move for democracy. That's really cool. Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. Whatever we could do, we'd love to help with that. that's
Okay.
a
Well,
great
look, when I've
initiative.
got it in the website up and in place, how about I'll let you guys know when we do this again.
Oh, that sounds great. That's fantastic.
And then we could also have a call-in show where Ontario people call in, and I can
Yes.
explain, pertinent things about Alberta, like how flat it is as soon as you go.
You mentioned, since I have you, I'm going to dig into your economist brain here a little bit,
Sure.
because you did mention that what's going on federally here, we're sort of reorienting,
hmm
right? Alberta has a role to play in that, hopefully. They don't seem
Yeah.
to want to play a role in that at the moment, under the current administration, but Alberta has a role to play in that. There seems to be a little bit of light between Scott Moe and Danielle Smith on this, a little bit. I don't know if that's a lot. I don't know if that's real. Maybe you could tell me you have more ear to the ground on that. But with what Mark Carney wants to do, specifically like this whole reorientation thing, is it something that is actually, is this a project that is way too grand, or is it something that is actually, if we systematically go at it in an like thoughtful and patient way, but not dilly dallying, can it be done? Can we turn around?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
The amount of trade that we're losing from the U.S., we can make up just by reducing internal trade barriers. It's often been said of Canada that we're not a real country, right? That we're 10 little fiefdoms. And
Mhm.
in part, that is true. And we're living with the effects of that, unfortunately, in Alberta. But we can clearly get better at shopping Canadian, right? We can clearly get better at having standards that allow people to move around the country and work. And that's one of the most critical parts of having of being Canadian. I don't know, how far you've traveled in your lifetime, but I've moved from Saskatchewan to Ontario to Alberta to the Northwest Territories, back to Saskatchewan, and back to Alberta, having lived in Vancouver, Montreal, and Moncton for, periods of time.
Okay.
Right. It's a beautiful country that way, in that if, I needed to find work and work was available in New Brunswick, we can go, right?
Right.
I don't think people have internalized that would go away if we were to separate. We're going to separate because it's difficult for all the reasons that we talked about before. But it really comes down to, we can do a lot better as a country, business-wise, and it's something that I'm going to do my level best to help and promote. I can tell you from my own experience that we could do a much better job at helping entrepreneurs in terms of having essentially laboratories for them to be able to experiment in, right? There's
Okay.
so many ideas that people have that could be turned into, the next billion-dollar idea, but they don't have the $1 million that it takes to find it out. There's a saying in business that a bad idea and $1 million beats a good idea every time. And that's true. But what I'd like to see if we can't do is to organize into essentially what are like maker clubs, but for business, right? Where we get together and help each other, build new businesses, create new things, invent.
Now, are you talking about all sizes of businesses?
I'm particularly talking about small and medium ones, which are the ones that generate most of the employment, and
Okay.
also have the best possibility of creating real growth in domestic product. Right? Gross domestic product is a measure of how much money we make. It's nothing more complicated than what we as a society, have as profit. And the best way to grow that is for people to be doing things that they love and being able to sell them in an efficient way.
Okay. An idea I wanted to run by you that's a little unrelated, but this
Mhm.
conversation made me think of it. One of my favorite nonfiction books is A Banker to the Poor. It's a
Mhm.
story of Muhammad Yunus, who's a
Yeah.
Nobel winner, and I believe has taken on, had taken on at least interim leadership in Myanmar after everything
Mm.
went to pot down there. Um, the concept of microcredit is not really prevalent in Canada, and it's something that I always thought that there's a layer of
Mhm.
lending, the tier of lending that is missing. For example, for businesses, let's say the size of ours, or for
Mhm.
example, for people in Indigenous communities who want to start up something, or people in lower income urban communities who want to get out and want to start something. That's not that's not there. Is there a place for that in Canada? And would that be something that, like, some initial funding for a microcredit bank from the federal government or something like that, that could be useful in terms of that turnaround?
Yeah, those kind of ideas would be awesome. I mean, the biggest challenge we've got in Canada is that we don't have investment banks or stock market that is good at venture capital for startups. Um, I've compared notes with many U.S. entrepreneurs, and they just go to take their business plan to their local investment bank and get money and get started. With us, the most you're going to get out of a bank is sort of 50% of whatever they can sell if you go broke, right? So it's
Right.
it's a difficult environment to be an entrepreneur. Um, but there are things that we can do that don't take money or much money to help people along the process of firming up their product, firming up their discovery, determining where the market is, and then creating a network essentially where if people are interested in investing, if we're showcasing these new companies, I'm hoping that they can find private investment, right? Um, because there's still some of that out there, and it's getting more difficult to find places for people with money to put their money.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of things that we can do that, had they been around when I was trying to start something technical, right? I had one company where we were looking at creating a new type of energy metering system. Um, to be able to go and have some money to try prototypes and test them in the field and those sort of things would have been invaluable, right? We might have been able to turn that into a good business if we had
Mm.
had the ability to get it to that starting line. And that's really what I think it comes down to is the more people that we can get to the starting line of building something incredible, the better off we're going to be.
Okay. So those are the
And I
two
know it's
elements.
weird to hear optimism from an economist, but
Hey, bring it on, man. Bring it on. Um,
it's it's going to be interesting having someone with Carney's background as
yeah.
leader of the country because he knows what levers to pull.
It must be
And
a really cool time to be an economist, actually thinking about it right now.
we are just damned handy, but we're just too depressing.
So so, to balance things out, then it's like if we were like this, we'd have to have our resident foul-mouthed economist and then our resident optimistic cheery economist.
I know it
Yeah,
does.
you're right. I don't know too many optimistic economists, come to think of it.
Well, it's because you have to study human nature, and from the
Yeah.
crooked timber of human nature, nothing straight can ever be made.
Mm,
Mm.
mm, mm.
It gets down to a fundamental thing. Uh, do you know what the two criteria are to have a blossoming economy?
I
The
always
two,
say people that are educated and people that are healthy enough to work.
no, neither of those
Okay.
things.
Okay.
What you need is rule of law
Yes.
and strong property rights. Because if you don't have those things, what ends up happening is people won't put in the work to build something that's just going to get stolen from them,
Mm,
right?
mm. Russia.
Exactly. And it's why they have such a terrible economy, right? They have an economy the size of Italy's, having as much oil as we do, and 3 times our population.
Yeah, because that was what 10 or 15 years into the experiment, they just decided, yep, that's ours now, and then people stopped investing.
Well, they decided what the Americans are deciding, that hey, we don't need this democracy shit.
Yeah, really.
Just stopping our multi-trillion-dollar wealth transfer. I honestly
Indeed.
don't know what the rich people in America are going to do when they're the only ones left.
Right.
Right?
Right. Who's going to fix that fancy car?
I don't for the life of me understand the pathology of billionaires. But I'm glad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. It's maybe better not to understand, because you might see the appeal.
I don't understand serial killers either, and I'm just as glad. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's when people say, hey, it's like we should start the Beaver Party, and like Douglas is like, no, you do not want to give me that much power. You just do not want to give me that much.
There's the reason why I'm not running for office.
I have this little realm like this, and here I am queen, and that is good. But yeah, it's like I would say, like, power. It's like, you don't want to give me too much power.
The power is actually pretty neat. The Harper Gambit.
Yeah. Looking economically, the other sort of question I had is stateside. We're let's see, delicately. That one big beautiful bill act has passed in the lower chamber in the United States. I still don't foresee it passing in the Senate in some way, because senators have to be elected statewide, and that's the I think they have a sense. Hopefully, they have a sense of self-preservation that will supersede what's going on, that they want to keep their jobs. But what we're noticing, and this is a subject I don't know too much about, and we talked about it a little bit on the election show, but the concept of the bond market and the stock market, and that the bond market is so much bigger than the stock market. And even though we're watching all these things happen, and the stock market's sort of going up and down and whatnot, and vacillating within a range at the moment, that everybody that's looking at the stock market is basically in a state of misdirection. They're looking at the wrong thing. What the real action thing that you're supposed to be looking at is at the bond market at this time. It's what I'm being told. You can tell me if I'm way off on this. And it seems that, from what I can tell, it's the deficit to GDP ratio in the United States is at about 6.4% at the end of last year, 2024. And the way that he is doing this bill gives all the goodies for the people, like the cut on the tax on tips and on overtime, up until the end of this mandate, and all of the big multi-trillion-dollar tax cut that he's trying to basically hollow out the country in order to give. Most of that kicks in once he would go, assuming he would go at the end of this term. And that's going to leave a huge hole that could raise the deficit to GDP ratio to about like 9% by 2035. That happened, the bottom would fall out of the bond market. But they see that coming. And yesterday, I think it was, the bond market for the 10-year went up like 0.12 or something like that, but crossed over like 5%, which means, and for that, it means that the United States, for people who are buying United States debt, because they're expecting a bigger interest rate because the debt is considered riskier. And we had Moody's cut them down a lot. If this happens, right, there's only so many times that the stock market is going to go up and down within the range before they realize, like, it's really serious, and that drop is going to happen if this goes through. So have I understood that part correctly?
Yes. So the U.S. 10-year Treasury bonds are what is considered to be the world's least risky investment. If you take
Gotcha.
a finance class, they are considered R0, which is the lowest risk of any class of investment, better
Okay.
than cash.
Okay.
They have used their position as the reserve currency of the world, the one that's traded the most, to effectively be able to borrow from the world by printing money. And they don't really even print it. It's just appears in a computer ledger and off they
Right.
go. And they've been able to do this for 40 years now, where essentially their deficits and debt have climbed and climbed and climbed. I mean, the first time I got asked about worry over the US debt levels was in the mid 2000s when they were spending trillions on the Gulf Wars. So it's been an ongoing issue for some time, but it's really been their position as the world's trading currency that's allowed them to do that. With them acting riskier at this moment in time, they have a real problem, which is that this year they need to roll over something around $9 trillion in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're having to do this now at these higher interest rates,
Mm-hmm.
which just adds to the snowball.
Right.
And so it comes to a very interesting question ultimately, which is there a limit to how much money they can print? And they're getting close to that, it seems. And then the second question is, will they be able to meet their debt obligations? Because the nuclear bomb in the room is if they were to ever default on their debt, it would lose them everything. I mean, they would lose their place as the reserve currency.
Right.
The price of borrowing would go through the roof. The American dollar would be devalued, radically. It's, as the Chinese curse says, interesting times.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, they are on a path of madness that seems to be their, final push to throw a match into everything such that it can never be fixed again and drown government in the bathtub.
So, were that to happen, so should the United States say,
Default.
not touching you, not touching you, not touching, and they do that, and bond market says, yeah, you just touched me. What happens to Canada?
We might well become the reserve currency.
Oh, that's an angle I have not heard. Please say more.
Well, you need a currency that's stable and widely traded. We trade more than the US does, right?
That's true.
I mean, it would either be us or the euro. Right? I don't think it's going to be the yuan because the Chinese play too many games with their currency markets.
Right.
The real important thing with the US currency was they didn't spend a lot of time trying to play with exchange rates until Trump.
So, if this move keeps on going that way, and let's say we do get closer to Europe, and let's say in some mystical or magical future like this, we actually join the EU, and let's say we do adopt the euro, something along the way, right? Would that be if that was all happening at one time, would that be a catalyst for that to happen? And said, let's just decide it's the euro and we just join the EU and make it nice and tidy?
It quickly gets into an area that I can't claim to be expert on, which is what happens in those sort of currency transfers. There's a real advantage to having your own currency.
Yes.
I mean, do you know what a dollar is? It's the lowest common denominator that we use in our accounting system when we calculate our taxes.
Okay.
right? That's really all a dollar is.
Okay.
So when we have our own currency, when we have, essentially we print money by fiat, you can do essentially deficit spending to some extent forever. Because as you put that money into the economy, that new money into the economy,
Right.
you've picked good places to put it,
Right.
where it doesn't just get locked away in someone's, investment portfolio holding U.S. Treasuries. It can add a productive gain to the economy that sends some of it right back in terms of taxes, right?
Okay.
So I don't know that we would ever want to give up on having our own currency,
Yep.
but us becoming the reserve currency, either on our own or with someone else's, it gets interesting then. But
Okay.
that's where you need somebody like Mark Carney.
Okay. Cool. So that last thing that you were talking about there was that how all these pieces could move. That's a little bit what Mark Carney has been talking about, isn't it?
Yep.
Because you were saying it, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've heard something like that before.
If you know what you're talking about, you often say the same things.
There you go. That's sometimes your efficiency with words, sir, is very impressive.
I do have a tendency to cut things off short. It comes from many years of witness training.
Yes, do not volunteer too much. Just give the essential and only answer the question.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. I hear you. Strategy. Yes, indeed. So coming back home, if we are, when Mark Carney talks about taking those limited tax dollars and spending them in such a way that they have a catalyzing effect,
Hmm.
right? And that's sort of like, again, it's spending money is not bad. It's what you spend it on that matters,
Correct.
right? So when you have all the conservatives going, "Oh my God, they're spending money," like this, or the division of the budget between capital costs and operational costs, which we're going to try and even out in capital costs. I I have no economic background. I think that this is a particularly good idea from a communication standpoint, as a communication, because like you said, economists worry, communication strategists, we worry too, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the time. That's our life. We worry. But I see that because the whole concept is that deficits are bad, and we know that deficits are not necessarily bad. Any one of us was bought a house, or has furthered our education, or has taken up a loan to renovate our house in such a way that would add value to it, not just something that has to, right? Like, we know that you can take money, you can borrow money to go take a vacation, or you can borrow money to go to school. And the outcome of the borrowing that money is going to be vastly different on your future earning potential,
Correct.
right? So for me, when I'm looking at this division, I'm looking at, well, if we can keep the operational costs can be balanced and the capital costs are running a deficit, when somebody turns around and goes, "Oh my God, it's so irresponsible, we're running deficits." Yeah, but look what we're getting for that
It's
that train and
irresponsible.
that pipeline and that.
It's irresponsible running surpluses when you have any unemployment.
Okay.
I mean, the trade-off in economics is always employment, right? If you're managing an economy, that's the main thing that you're concerned about. And so I can see why targeting young unemployed men, is such a critical part of their plan.
That trades funding was very
Exactly.
key, that announcement.
And from my own perspective, in terms of wanting to help people, it's a key area that I'm going to focus on, is helping young men make good decisions around their careers, helping young men make good decisions around their way of living and way of doing things. Teach them that actually kindness is an aphrodisiac.
That's power.
And, try and get away from, what's been just cheap soap powder to be sold that the way to be is this super aggressive asshole, when in fact that hardly ever works, right? Like it's just a bad practice to get into. But, we'll see. It's the biggest challenge that I think we've all got and that we're all struggling with is the extent to which we're divided into so many different bubbles of information and opinion. And we need to pierce that. We need to find ways that we can talk to each other about important things in useful ways. My guess is if we lined up 100 Canadians, other than the extreme wackadoos, they would agree on 90% of everything. Okay. Right? We really are living in a world where our smallest differences are amplified for political benefit.
Gotcha. Bringing it back to Alberta, with all of this knowledge and all this discussion, what's going on in the United States, what's going on over here, what Mark Carney, Prime Minister Carney wants to achieve, and all that kind of stuff. If Canada was fortunate enough to currently have a government of Alberta who literally wanted to be on Team Canada and row in the same direction as the rest of the team and wants to be helpful, what would that look like?
You would lift the ban on green energy. We have the largest unexploited green energy basin in North America, with the potential for hundreds of thousands of megawatts of cheap wind power. And connected to hydro grids like BC, Manitoba, and Ontario, you can take the variable and unpredictable output of wind turbines and smooth it out through hydro plants. I mean, basically what you do is if you've got wind blowing, you reduce the amount of water you're flowing through your dam, and the effective result is a very efficient battery. In fact, it's more than 100% efficient, because as the water backs up behind your dam, you get more hydraulic head and thus more power. So that would be the thing to do, is create that east-west corridor for electricity and have the cheapest power on the planet available for us to use for industry, right? And the easiest and cheapest way to decarbonize is to electrify things that are currently pushed by gas, for example. So instead of gas-powered plants on our pipelines, you make them electric.
And that's an advantage we have. For example, like if this trade war is going to go down, is the fact that we have some of the cheapest energy in the world. And that a lot of it is decarbonized already for people who want to make products that meet international standards. Come do it here.
Or
that's a selling point for us now.
If we want to do AI, right? AI takes gigawatts of power.
Yeah.
And we should probably do that because it's the future, right?
Right. Okay. What else would a government of Alberta be doing?
They would not be destroying our entire healthcare system and selling it off a profit.
Because that's another draw for businesses, a proper healthcare system.
Yeah, no, I just don't get these guys. They want us to be Mississippi just so bad. Like, it's just crazy. Anyway, yeah, if we had a government that was on Team Canada, they would be, talking about what resources we can bring to the table. It could be talking about the pipeline to the Hudson's Bay. I, for the life of me, don't understand why, when Conservatives had the chance and had the government, that they didn't push for an Energy East pipeline on basis of energy security.
Right.
Right. I can tell you what my nightmare scenario is: a war in the Gulf Coast or in the Arabian Gulf, stopping oil production there and then the U.S. immediately slapping on an export ban such that Eastern Canada gets no more oil.
Right.
And that's a real possibility.
Yeah.
Right. So if it was me, I would be pushing for an Energy East type of pipeline as well, but with additional refining capacity at one end or the other, probably at our end, so that we're not caught out if the world goes to hell.
Yeah. Yeah, because when the United States, when Michigan was looking to unilaterally end Line 5 a couple of years ago,
Right.
that was not a good time.
No. And I think people need to get it in their heads that the Americans don't give a fuck about us. Like, we are not people to them.
Mhm.
Like, it's that bad.
Yep. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are
Yep.
just another republic, up for bananification.
Yeah. The that's, I'm guessing maybe that's why the Premier of Quebec is kind of taking a different position than the leader of the Bloc Québécois at the moment, trying to signal that there's probably more openness, and that and even the people, the citizens of Quebec, are sort of noticing that there's. Yes. I mean, we had, so long as the United States we thought was going to be our friend, we had the luxury of doing that. But I mean,
Right.
in minus 20 something, people still want to heat at home,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
regardless of their ideals.
without diesel, Quebec and Ontario would grind to a halt. Right.
Right.
So we're back to the pessimistic stuff.
Right. You got to keep it real.
We got to keep it real. Yeah.
You got to keep it real.
I think that it's a sobering time to be alive, because no one can betray you but a friend, right? And we've been betrayed.
I like that one. That's deep. No one could betray you but a friend. Right up there with nobody can make you feel bad about yourself without your permission.
There you go.
Wow. Hey, we're even getting a little philosophical here. There you go.
It's inevitable, right? It's just,
philosophy is
when you
also
bring
worry,
me
isn't it?
on, it's gonna happen.
Oh, sir. Do you have anything else that you want to add about your projects and initiatives going on in Alberta that you're looking at?
I think we've covered everything that we can cover for today. I will be back when we've got our next initiative up and running. Do watch for what we're doing with the Citizens Research Forum, because we'll try and create an interesting set of shows to give people a gateway into what it's going to look like for researching things, and trying things like using AI for researching government documents and other sorts of cool things that we can do these days. But really the core is just to get more people involved and interested in political decision making without it being political, right? This whole idea that we need to divide ourselves into teams is very, very effective from the political party perspective. Right? Once you get people mad, oh man, they'll work their butts off for you, right? And that's what it comes down to in political campaigns. How many door knockers have you got? How many people have you got out canvassing? Get people mad and they'll hit the streets. And so that's what we've ended up with, right? Where people just put out a continuous stream of hot button talking points to keep their people mad and keep them from talking sensibly to their neighbor. And that's got to stop. Right? It's destructive to the country. It's bad for politics. And it's just dumb, right? Like, at the end of the day, we need to smarten up. And that means that we can't let the dumbest of us shout the loudest and interrupt our conversation.
Right. One final question for you, just in case. I just was wondering, do you happen to have any connections or links or whatnot with the Indigenous community?
I have a number of friends who are with the Indigenous community, and certainly a number of people online that I connect with.
Okay.
And so that will be another thing to add in. And again, as I said, I would really love to have Indigenous language programming that would go across the country. So yeah, lots of very cool things that we need to get doing.
Okay. I'm just wondering about your insight or your take, and I'm like clearly not asking you to speak for Indigenous Canadians, but there's been a series of letters,
Mm-hmm.
right, from various nations, and I believe a week ago Thursday was last Thursday there was a relatively there was an organized event.
Yes.
Uh, have you, from your ear to the ground or anything? It's like, what is? Do you have a sense of uh, how organized that movement is, or how determined, or does anybody talk to you about like this? Do you have an insight into like strategies or whatnot, or how it is that they're going to approach this?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you need to recognize that this is nothing more than a smokescreen, right? The whole purpose of this separation threat is to save Danielle Smith's ass. There's no hope that this is going to succeed for all the reasons that you've mentioned. But what it will do is divide this province into, basically normal people and then subpopulation of extremely agitated wannabe separatists, right? Like I'm worried more about Alberta separatists planting bombs and shooting people than what we saw in Quebec. Like these people have been wound up and wound up and wound up and wound up, and one of them's going to pop, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be somebody who decides that politics is, I'm done talking, right?
Yeah, because the movements are different. You're right.
That's the callous danger that these people are risking for their political hides.
Yeah.
And I just have no. I've known Danielle Smith for over 20 years now, and she keeps getting worse.
Okay.
Right? Like it's beyond the pale what they're doing and the reasons that they're doing it for.
See that point that you just mentioned there about the difference in the separatist movements. I'm much more familiar with the Quebec one, being francophone and being living right close to it, than I am with the Alberta one. And it's you're right. There is a lot more of a uh, listen. We're not better. We're not worse. We're just different. And clearly we are different. We have a different language. We have a different culture. We're building institutions. I mean, their project, even though it would have divided Canada, seemed to be more of an tous ensemble. Let's build something. And even with the Bloc Québécois, like I watched them go because they were official opposition too. And even right now, like there's this recount in Terrebonne that they're asking for another by-election, and everybody's got like, "Do you think it's rigged and whatnot?" And Josh is like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't want to hear any talk like that." We just right. So you could have very easily taken that and said, "Oh my God, those Anglos, they're ruining, they're disenfranchised. You got to get up in battles like this to try to make sure that we lose as francophones, we lose a seat, and they're, there's that Ottawa oppression again, like this." And he is like, really, no, no, no. And I've noticed that with the Bloc Québécois, it really is if we want to be a country one day and we are going to be the leaders of this country, then we need to show the citizens of Quebec how we would behave if we were leading the country. And therefore, they're not jumping on the radical stuff, and they're not biting at everything, and they're not trying to sink Canada in order. That whole attitude, if it's good for Canada, if it's good for Quebec, we'll vote for it. If it's not, we won't. But, we won't sit there and say, well, it's good for us, but it is good for you, so we won't vote for it. Just screw you, right?
Right.
They don't do that. I guess I'm a little worried about this newer version of the Parti Québécois because he seems to have rhetoric a little bit more like Danielle Smith a bit, in that like they will never accept us and it's always oppression. But that has traditionally been the movement in Quebec, whereas this one really is. The other one was aspirational. It's like we just want a place where we could be ourselves, whereas this one is like we got to get away from them before they destroy us. It's different.
The core of this one is white Christian nationalism, right? And I'm just going to call it for what it is.
Okay.
It's people that want their own private Idaho, right?
Yeah.
It's people that have a vision in their minds that they want to live in the world of Gunsmoke.
Yeah. And Quebec was breaking away from the church. That was their thing.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
we have a very, very strong evangelical movement in rural Alberta that is taking every idea that's come from south of the border and brought it here. You know, from the transsexual legislation to elections are stolen to, you know, anything you can think of. I'm you know, surprised they haven't asked for impeachment or, you know, insisted on their Second Amendment rights. It really is. It's bizarre. It's people getting information from right-wing U.S. radio and web sources are delusional, and they're ruining our province. But enough about cabinet.
Oh, my good friend, thank you so much for joining us today. Really, I just love it when you come on. I
Thank you
learn
very much
so
for
much.
Yeah. Prochaine fois, nous devons parler en français un petit peu. Hein?
Oui, ça serait excellent.
Oui.
J'aimerais ça beaucoup.
Pour moi, je dois pratiquer si je veux pas les beaux autres en Québec.
Mais ton français est quand même assez très bien pour quelqu'un qui n'a pas vraiment la chance d'habiter et qui n'est pas très entouré non plus.
Ma première femme est venue de Saint-Charles-de-Bellechasse, juste à côté de Lévis.
Ah, tout s'explique.
Des enfants francophones. Ça,
that's fantastic. Yeah, no, I know. It's like listen, I'm a born Anglophone, and English is my mother tongue, the first language I learned. But my mother is a Franco-Ontarian, I guess, and she made sure I went to school in French, and I did all my schooling from pre-K through university in French in Ontario. It is possible, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
And now French is actually my dominant language because I know all my grammar in French. I know that dangling participles exist. I could not tell you what they are in English. I could not identify one. I do not. I know absolutely no grammar in English because I know it all in French. It's weird. It's like even typing, like the keyboards. I have to have, because we went in our typing class, we had like the English language keyboard like this with the accents in weird places, like this, with the accents for Canadian. So on computer, I have to do like, even though the layout of my keyboard is English, I have to do like the multilingual setting. So like the keys that are actually on my keyboard are not the keys that are typing, because I have to remember and it's like only if you are like completely, fully bilingual will you ever use that keyboard, right? Like nobody else uses it. So I'm a bit of a freak that way. But yes, other than the gift of life, the gift of French was the best gift my mother ever gave me, because it's just an entirely whole other world and culture that I get to participate in fully. Like I understand the inside jokes, and I understand like all of it because you speak the language.
Well, not just that. I mean, Quebecois are cool. I mean,
they're
just cool.
There is that. Well, you know, you are pretty cool too, sir.
Well, you know, I don't try too hard at it, but you know,
that's the trick.
Economics is where all the cool kids hang out.
Hey, the wild bunch too. I've heard. I don't know if it's true.
We will sometimes have a tea.
Look, if you're out there, let me just tell you something. All stories about economists that you hear about them being like super wild and fun are rumors they've started about themselves.
Because it's cheap.
I love it when you come and visit. Thank you so much. And yes, absolutely. When you have more, please do let us know, and we'll have you back. Our audience loves you. We do too. So
well, love you guys. Thank your audience for any help you can send our way on either fighting these lawsuits and when the time comes, staying in Canada. And tell your Alberta friends. Stay with Canada or we can't be friends anymore.
All
I
right.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll see you guys. Take care.
See, I love this guy so much. All right, let's see. This is the first time I'm ever making a guest disappear. So, all right, see you
All
soon.
right.
Bye.
Bene.
Poof, magic. There we go. Kids and Cubs. Ooh, what's happening over here? Something's disappeared. Look at that. Oh, okay. The camera's catching the wall. That's what's happening. Yeah, I had to shift the camera a little bit because we were in the 3 panel to make sure that I was centered. So now that I'm in single panel, the camera is actually getting some of the wall rather than all the curtain. But that's okay because we just had a great show. And that's what matters, kids and cubs. Oh, my. Wow. I don't know about you, but I really learned a lot during this episode. And I love the initiatives, this grassroots thing that's coming on, bringing people along, having that sort of network or that research group where you can find out what's real and what's not, and it being done in such a way that makes politics really accessible and approachable, and for people who might not want to get involved too much with politics because they feel like there's too much heat, creating an environment where there is less of that heat and more about learning and exchange. That's all great. And then again, that cafe, what did he call it again? I have it written down just to make sure, canadacafe.ca type thing. So that's going to be another great initiative. Or just getting people to, a different type of public square. Because, and somewhat in the vibe here at the Beaver Lodge, where we try to create a little space somewhere on this big web where people can bring facts first, can bring reasoned arguments that follow the fundamental rules of logic, where we don't, among the people here, are chatting each other, where we try not to first assume the worst out of each other, where if there's something we don't understand, we should say, hey, I didn't understand what you said. Could you please say more about that? And where the attitude is more, we exchange. It's like, tell me what you believe and why you believe it, and I'll tell you what I believe and why I believe it. And like this, without trying to convince each other or convert each other or whatnot, just space. Like, I'll tell you what I believe. And maybe when it's less threatening, like that, maybe when people know, say, hey, like this, I might have passion and I might have some heat in that way because I'm passionate about the subject, like this, but I'm not trying to convert or convince you. I'm just trying to tell you how I see things. And if you can get to that dynamic with another person, then it becomes way easier to say, well, I don't agree, but I can see how someone would see it that way. And if we could get to that type of space in our conversations, yes, where we're not looking at each other, with in French, méfiance, with oh my God, um, the word's not coming to me. Sorry, I'd have to look it up. Imagine I'm a translator and the word doesn't actually come to me. But we have to get to a point where we act as if that just because we don't understand something doesn't mean that our first reaction to it is to fear it or destroy it, but rather seek to know more. Seek to know more so that you know whether or not this is something you should fear, rather than just reflexively fearing something because you don't understand it. And vice versa with regard to participation. Not reflexively deciding that, oh, well, I don't know enough about this, so I've got nothing to say. You might know more about it than you think you do, but you might not have all the words. This, or you might have a good idea where you turn around and you say, well, yeah, but yeah, maybe it's not a good idea, like this, and you stop the idea before it even gets put out in the world, and other people can go and say, hey, that's pretty good. Or if the whole idea isn't good, well, not the whole thing, but that thing in there that you said, that's good. We should take that. right? There are all these different types of conversations that we can have rather than walking in the room and saying, I'm right, you're wrong, or I must destroy you, or I must win, or I must. There can be, even you could, in a conversation where you don't agree with 60 or 70% of what somebody's saying, like this, but if it's said in a non-threatening way, like this, you might be more open to hear, well, I don't agree with 60 or 7% what you say, but there is 30% that I do agree with, rather than you're all wrong. Right? Of course, it's a two-way street. Hopefully, the two sides of the political spectrum could do that. And there are, like, not to borrow a line from Donald Trump, but there actually are good people on both sides of the political spectrum, probably closer to the center, right? Who want to engage in that type of dialogue. And further, there are probably also some very good people, but there's fear or anger or sadness. And I often say that anger is unresolved sadness. Um, but that is there, and that's real, right? We can, when somebody's speaking from that portion, from the emotional side of their being, yes, and we're responding uh, on the rational and logical side, is uh, we might be right, but we're not talking the same language, right? So if somebody's coming emotionally, they have to be engaged on the emotional level. Well, what's this feeling? Where does it come from? Why do you feel it? And why do you fear that? And it's like, well, what if we said that so this is your fear. Well, what if we said that there's a way we could do that where we can eliminate that fear? Would you be okay with the idea then now? What would it take for you for something that would achieve this end like this, but not make you afraid about how we get there or something? But it has to be different types of conversations. And then when, you get somebody that's trying to drown you in facts and whatnot and data and statistics and whatnot, but it's a subject that you know about and you know that this data is incorrect. Well, then, you can go on the data to data, right, debate, instead of responding, well, I don't know why you're, it's like, don't you understand that you're wrong? Like this data is like, I just can't believe you're like, that emotional reaction to the data thing might not be the best conversation again as well. Right? So there has to be different ways for us to engage, uh, but those spaces have to be created because, especially if you're online, the entire incentive of being online is the clash, the likes and the clicks. Ah, you got him. That's a good one. That's and but it's got to be more than that at the end of the day, right? So one of the things that we preach on the show, the entirety of our identity cannot be politics. It has to be more. So if we're going to be well-rounded people, we got to start coming to each other correct and with respect, and not with, starting the conversation with side eye. I don't know about you. Right? We have to show up and be present and say, listen, I'm willing to have an exchange with you. And yes, I accept by wanting to have an exchange with you that I might hear things that I don't like. And that's okay. Because the point is to establish a connection and have a meaningful exchange, having a meaningful human moment, even if you don't agree. And if we can start doing that more often, if we just all pump our brakes a little bit and maybe not see each other first as an enemy to be vanquished, but someone who might learn something from, or someone who might show us a blind spot that we have. Maybe that's more sane and gentler, and maybe ultimately, at the end of the day, more productive. Maybe. Wouldn't hurt to try. What do we got to lose? Right? All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show, or the Eager Beaver Interview Project. We hope that you loved listening to us, because we loved making this for you, especially today. We love having Dave over as our guest. He's just he's a delight. He's a delight. There's no other word. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really, really, really appreciate it when you do. And if you happen to be a beaver who is on the go, or a cub that's on the go, well, hey, maybe you don't have time to listen to the full show at home. Well, guess what? We are portable. Ha! Look at that. If you need to go places, just carry us with you and put us in your ear. Thanks to the Ray Girl, you can do that, because we don't only have this video cast, but we are also available in ears-only podcast format. So if you need some beaver and grizzly to go, scan that QR code. That will bring you to our pod page, podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, with a hyphen between each one of those words. Thanks to the Ray Girl for sponsoring it, or if you scan the QR code. And when you go there and click on subscribe when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, zip, it comes straight to you, just like that. It's almost like magic. Well, I am a fairy. So please, kids and cubs, do that. And if you would like to help us in other ways, well, hey, maybe you want to join the Dam Fam and watch us on the True North Eager Beaver Media YouTube page. If you're able to watch live, we're usually live Monday to Fridays around 7 a.m. This happens to be a pre-record because we have, I personally have to be in a vehicle tomorrow morning at the time that the show would be done. So we decided to have a little pre-record for you, and that gives us a time to have our guests from out west, because asking them to wake up at 5 or 4 in the morning to talk to us would be a little much. So the pre-records come in handy too. So if you would like to, go to our YouTube page and maybe click subscribe there. We also have like and share as some buttons, and when you click those, that helps us with the algorithm. So if you're feeling helpful today, why not go there and give us a click? Now, if there are other ways that you would like to help us, we could really use this type of help, because we do incur some costs to bring the show to you. And, well, you know, we have to fight every day to make sure that we keep our beavers moist. Yum, yum. So if you would like to fight the scourge that is dry beaver, kids and cubs, boom, right there. That QR code brings you to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. And if you contribute to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, well, according to our scientific labs, your sex appeal increases by 28.7% instantly. It's just science. Tip? Ding. Instant sex appeal, because tipping is always very, very sexy. So coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, or you scan that QR code. And thank you so much for your enthusiastic expressions of encouragement. We like to hear from you. TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is our email address to write us. And it's also the email address to send a direct transfer if you are buying Canadian and want to avoid those CE Tech Bros in the United States when you're making your donation. But if you can't make a donation, hey, there's no need to worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter most to us. And in terms of participation, well, writing to us and letting us know what you think about the show, or suggesting some guests. Or, for example, we do want to do a Q&A show soon. So, sorry, I don't know why I said do a Q&A show come on. My mouth just kept going. We want to do a Q&A show soon, and because it's been requested by some of the kids, but we need your questions. So if you ever had any questions about anything political that you want our take on, say, hey, Mr. Beaver, what do you think about this? Or Mr. Grizzly, what do you think about that? Please send us a question. If you want to know anything about how the show works behind the scenes, that's okay too. If you want to know how we pick our guests, that works too. Any questions that you have either about the political scene or about the show, send them to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And when we have enough, we'll have a Q&A show for you. All right. What else do we have? Oh, you can reach us on our socials as well if you want to talk to us. At True Eager, at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook. And of course, if you are watching here on YouTube, either live with the damn fam or later, boom, boom, right here in the comment section, just leave us a little something. And we do read everything. We're not able to get back to everyone, but everything that you say goes back into the show. And same thing with your donations. Everything that you donate does go back into the show to make it better. And we are so grateful for everything that you do to help make the show better. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs, do keep your ear to the ground on what's going on in Alberta. And if you would like, saveathana.com is where you can go, and that will have a link to the GoFundMe. Right now, I believe the GoFundMe is at about 93% of its goal. So let's do a little bit to get this good person who is fighting for transparency and clean books the funds that they require so that they can bring this case to court, so that it can go through the judicial system, and so that we can get a clear decision on what it is that has happened, because it would appear that some accountability is required, and it would seem that some accountability, um, it might not only accountability that might not only be of a wrongful dismissal variety eventually might be required here based on all the stories that we are reading in the news. So if you are able to help that, because we can't allow this. We can't allow this. This is something that everybody needs to participate in. We need to make sure that this type of precedent is, we don't sanction this type of behavior on behalf of a government. So we have to fight against it. So anything that you can do would be greatly appreciated, kids and cubs. So words of wisdom. I think I gave them a little bit already in the closing. So just, try to make an effort when you can to approach with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. Right. And maybe our conversations will be a little better then. Kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Oh, audience participation time. I need you, kids and cubs, to say the magic words. Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. In 3, 2, 1. Hit me with it. Ooh, such sweet, sweet, beautiful music. Thank you so very much. Again, I am your queen, and I live to serve. Poof. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, just a little note because I went to check on it. Oh boy. There is going to be some hand wringing because at the IIHF World Hockey Championships in the playoffs, in the quarterfinals, Canada was playing Team Denmark, and Team Canada, in one of the biggest upsets probably in hockey in a long time, lost to Team Denmark 2-1, and Team Canada is eliminated in the quarterfinals. Yeah, shocker, a stunner all around. So yeah, it's going to be Sweden versus the United States, if I am not mistaken, in the first semifinal. And it is going to be Switzerland versus Denmark in the second semifinal. But yeah, Team Canada, 2-1 loss in this game. One goal for Canada by Travis Sanheim in the losing effort. And, well, for the Danes, Nikolai Ehlers, who is a Winnipeg Jet and just recently joined after the Jets being knocked out on the team, was the first goal scorer for Denmark and the second one in the match. The game winning goal is Nick Olesen. And that winning goal was scored at 19:11 with 49 seconds left in the match. Team Canada had scored first. All the scoring took place in the third period. So it was a 0-0 for the first two. Canada opened the scoring at 5:17 in the third period. And then near the end, the Danes scored two quick goals. 2 goals in fewer than 2 minutes to surprise and upset Team Canada. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of tongues wagging about that tomorrow. Whew, didn't expect that. But hey, that's why you play the games, right? Any given Thursday, I guess. All right, Kits and Cubs, as it is Friday, where you are, because I'm in time travel right now, have a most beaverific weekend. And we'll see you again on Monday. Oh, no, we'll see you on Saturday for the PubCast. Yes, I forgot about that. I don't know if we have that little thing. I know Mr. Grizzly has it all the time where he can do the PubCast promo, but I do not see it in here. So unfortunately, I cannot show it. But Saturday, live from the Lieutenant's Pump in Ottawa on Elgin Street in the nation's capital. Start time, I'm guessing, will probably be around 1 p.m. is usually what we start. If we start a little later, please check our socials. We'll be updating you there. But we can't wait to see you on Saturday. And it's going to be a Beaver birthday bash since I didn't get to celebrate with you on the 19th because, well, I was given birth to twins. We're going to celebrate on Saturday. So I hope you will all come to my birthday party. All right, everyone, have a beaverific weekend and we'll see you soon. Bye.